Good evening, Pulkit. How are you?
Good evening, sir. I'm fine.
Okay. So, Pulkit, you can introduce yourself to the panel.
Good evening to all present. I'm Pulkit Bajaj, and I'm from Delhi. I'm 28 years old, and I completed my MBBS from Maulana Azad Medical College, University of Delhi in 2022. Thereafter, I was selected as an officer in the Indian Corporate Law Service in 2024.
Pulkit, so you are a qualified doctor, that also from a very prestigious college. Why did you decide to join civil service? You already joined and you left a noble profession like medicine. And after your parents would have invested money in you, and the government would have invested so much money in you, and India is short of doctors. So, why did you decide to leave that profession and join civil service?
So, my primary motivation to become a doctor in the first place was public service. And I believe that my current profession and my current vocation is in that same direction only, just on a wider scale and just in a different direction. That's it.
Mean to say that as a doctor, you were not doing public service?
So, I was, but the diversity of challenges that I can tackle in civil service is more than could do as a doctor.
Now, just I don't wish, I wish to qualify, but suppose you continue in corporate law service, which have no relationship with medicine. Don't you think that your talent and your knowledge will be wasted?
So, I don't believe that any knowledge is a waste. Apart from technical things taught in a medical college, certain skills are also ingrained as a part of a profession, especially in the medical profession, like tenacity, like meticulousness, like the ability to work long hours and to take decisions at crucial intervals. I think that those things will help me in my any service I go to. As far as the corporate law service is concerned, I believe that a person can study anything. I don't think people should be limited to certain subjects, and therefore I'm extremely excited to start my training, and I'm currently undergoing training also. So yes, I'm pretty excited to go through this journey and to learn something new.
Okay, good. Uh, because our relationship with USA, as far as trade is concerned, it is kind of there are now questions being raised with new administration taking over in month of January. 20 days hence, the new president would have taken over, and he has a certain set agenda which he claims again and again. What impact it will have on India US economic relationship?
Sir, I believe that the incoming President Donald Trump, we have already seen one term before, and if that is something to go by, yes, there were instances where certain tariffs were put, for example, on steel and aluminium imports. But we saw for more bonhomie as far as that administration was concerned, as compared to certain earlier administrations. I believe that yes, there has been calls by the incoming president that he'll put 10% tariffs across the slate, which will be applicable to India as well. But he has also taken a stand recently on the H1B visa issue, where earlier he was saying that he planned to scrap that policy, but now he has come in support of that policy. I believe that as US president, his first obligation is to the people of the United States. But I believe that India, as far as a global power is concerned, we have made almost certain that we do not indulge with administrations but with people. So, and the economic as well as geopolitical might of India cannot be ignored by any nation or any bloc, be it Russia or US. So I think that yes, there might be some trouble, but all in all, I see a positive outlook, no matter which administration would have come in.
Uh, Coming to our internal thing, let me come back to India. Now, we have conflict between judiciary, executive, and legislature. There is a criticism of the judiciary. The constitutional courts, that is High Courts and Supreme Court, that they are often stepping out of their jurisdiction. They are overreaching, or they are active, more active than they should be in their field, and getting into field which is reserved for executive and legislature. Do you agree with that statement?
Sir, I believe that what is judicial activism for one might be judicial review for another. We have seen that the judiciary has come forward with certain steps like the Vishakha guidelines in 1997 that eventually led to the formation of the POSH Act, which was rather positive. But yes, there are calls from certain quarters that issues like, for example, same sex marriage, which went to the court, are better settled in legislature and executive positions because they do not only talk about the law, but the effect that these decisions would have on society as a whole. I believe that in certain conditions, legislature is better suited to take decisions which have broad-based effects because they are the people's chosen representatives. But the role of the judiciary should not be underscored at any stage because they are the ultimate protectors of the constitution.
But my question was different. I'm not saying what they are doing or who is better. Whether Supreme Court of India or High Courts who have large number of cases pending before them, lakhs and lakhs of cases are pending before them. Should they spending precious hours in getting into domain of executive?
Sir, the constitutional powers of the Supreme Court give the primacy to the Chief Justice as master of roster to pick up any case that he sees fit. I think that is a better question left to the judiciary than to the executive bodies.
No, but what is your opinion? Should they be doing it? Or I want to know your opinion, your thought on this.
Sir, I believe that looking at the current pendency of cases, it has gone more than about 1 lakh in Supreme Court itself. I think they should first focus on legacy cases and delegate certain functions to the legislature and the executive wings of our government.
Okay. What is the role of ethics in civil service?
Sir, I believe that ethics is the basic foundational uh, is the basic foundational source of decision making in civil service. Every rule that we have is based on ethics. I believe that an ethical civil servant is the best position to serve the people. There can be a civil servant who might not be proficient or proficient enough in certain fields, but if he is not ethical, then I think it will lead to poorer results because proficiency and subject knowledge can be taught, but ethics cannot be taught.
You are from Delhi. Now, Delhi, there is a conflict going on between the Delhi government and its officers. Recently, the former chief minister announced certain schemes, and certain officers came up with advertisement in newspaper that there is no such scheme, and anybody collecting data would be violating the privacy, and you should not be parting with your data for a scheme which is not yet formalized. What is your say on that? Has the civil servants who have given that advertisement have acted correctly, or they have erred in their behavior?
Sir, I believe that while it is correct to warn people that they should not give their personal data to anyone because it can be misused in this day and age, but I think that the central service rules that I ascribe to specifically state that no civil servant can criticize government policies in public, and it is against the rules and can warrant disciplinary action. But the case in point is that the officials are claiming that no such policies exist. So it does not actually mean criticism of a government policy, but only criticism of not exactly criticism, but rebuttal of what a politician has said. So I believe that the finer points of this case need to be noted, and the lieutenant governor should take the opportunity to review with his legal team about what to do in this case because he is a disciplinary authority in this case.
A related question to this: Indian civil service was known as steel or iron framework or steel framework of India. Of late, there is a criticism that the steel framework has rusted. it is wilting. Is it correct to make such a statement?
Sir, I still believe that the Indian bureaucracy is the steel frame of the administration in India. If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't be here. And but as far as wrestling is concerned, these calls have come from quarters who believe that it would be better for specific subject experts and not journalists to serve in government and take policy decisions. I believe in the immense capability as well as the potential of every civil servant that is serving and will become a servant in the future. And I believe that it is also about mistrust that the people have with as far as bureaucracy is concerned, and this trust deficit needs to be overcome for it to become as effective as a force in government as I believe it can be.
Thank you, Pulkit. Over to Mr. Gitesh.
Good evening, Mr. Pulkit.
Good evening,
I can't
sir.
see you at the moment. Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Pulkit.
Good evening, sir.
Let me take you in in a direction which is probably not in your mainstream activities. But are you aware that one leading film personality recently passed away? Had an immense contribution to India's film industry. Director,
So,
known as a
sir,
director.
are you talking about Mr. Mani Ratnam?
No, no.
No, I'm sorry, sir. I'm not aware, sir.
Can I help you, Mr. Shyam Benegal?
Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. I got confused between the two, although that is not an excuse.
Right. Yeah. Have you heard the term parallel cinema? Shyam Benegal was linked with the expression parallel cinema. So, what would you understand by that?
So parallel cinema, as the name says, is parallel to the commercial cinema, where they do not make films or show stories that would necessarily mint money at the box office, but what they believe is an expression of the social fabric as well as exceptional craft that actors can follow. It is not for commercial benefit, but for appreciation of the craft itself.
Right. So, have you heard of a movie called Manthan made by Sri Shyam Benegal? It's a very the way the movie was funded is of great interest.
No, sir, I'm so sorry. I haven't neither heard nor seen the movie.
Right. Yeah, I think what you could take a look. The farmers, each one of them contributed, I believe, 2 rupees, and the movie was made with that.
Yes.
Right, and very successful also. It's not that parallel movies don't succeed. They do succeed commercially also. Yeah, but their budgets are low, focus on social justice and reality. Right. Uh, are you also have taken a look at some of the recent releases, movie releases? There are some, grand, large scale productions, right? So, what is happening to the Indian movie industry?
So this change I have seen post COVID, that more and more filmmakers are moving away from traditional drama based films and are going for magnum opus blockbusters, because after COVID, people have
Yeah.
people have started watching movies more on OTTs and their small screens, and they only want to go to cinema where the cinematic experience will offer something more. So movies like Jawan, Pathan, like recently like Pushpa 2 are made on a larger scale, which might sound or seem to be idiotic, but the mass public is liking them because they show something over and above the normal activities of their life. So that is something that is happening to cinema pan India, not only in Bollywood but also in regional cinema.
Let's say something like Bahubali, RRR, the movies that you have mentioned. So, can we now seriously talk about Bollywood and regional cinema? Is it a fair kind of understanding of the trends?
No, sir. In recent years, I believe that more and more films have become pan India, where
Right.
where cast as well as crew is coming from around from various industries. For example, RRR. For example, Jawan. For example, even Pushpa 2 has Bollywood as well as regional cinema cast and crew. So I think yes, it is becoming a pan-India phenomenon.
Right, and they're making in multiple languages simultaneously, right? Releases are in multiple languages.
And so that is adding to their commercial success also, because now they have a wider audience.
Right. Okay. You have given IFS as your number two
Yes.
choice, right? But suppose you were in IAS, I think that is your number one choice. Right? You were district magistrate, right? So you would still do some activity connected with, foreign related matters, right? Can you think of something that, if you were in the state government, you're still required, and you may be, you may have no choice but to work with embassies and Ministry of External Affairs. Can you think of some of these situations?
The number one I would see is that the earlier draft of this citizenship amendment rules said that the district magistrate was responsible for granting of citizenship certificates, but now that has been changed to the Indian Postal Service. Otherwise, if I'm district magistrate and there are people who are not citizens of this country, who are actually tourists or visitors who find themselves in trouble, then I'll be the point person with their home embassy to ensure their safety and return.
Yeah. And suppose Indians abroad are in trouble and their families are coming to you, would you help them?
So I will take their grievances to the Ministry of External Affairs, and they will coordinate with the field offices in the embassies to bring back people who are from my district.
Right. And suppose even the state industries department, then?
So can you please repeat the question? I didn't hear you properly.
If you were in the state industries department, and would you be doing some kind of coordination with Ministry of External Affairs, embassies?
So if I'm in the state industries department and a foreign company is opening a facility or an office in my district, then I think as magistrate, as part of the state industries department, I would be involved in discussions and preparations for that.
Would you do an outreach activity such as mobilizing investors conference?
Yes, sir. As part of the state industries division, yes, sir.
Yeah, diaspora, focusing on the diaspora for some of these issues.
Yes, sir.
So what is the lesson? That even if you don't join IFS, you still might have to do
foreign service.
Yes, you can't run away. Today's world is globalized.
Yes.
And international activity affects you. We already mentioned US visas, right, for
Yes,
our professionals. So everybody's concerned. The moment people do their IT, they're concerned about it. So you can't run away from international issues.
Yes.
Okay. Indo-Pacific you have heard of, right? It's very fashionable to talk about Indo-Pacific. Every country has an Indo-Pacific policy. Can you think of some keywords, which keeps coming? What is Indo-Pacific all about? Some keywords can you think of?
So the first key phrase I can think of is the free and open Indo-Pacific.
Right.
A rules-based order.
Yeah.
And sea lines of communication have to be safeguarded.
Very good. Open, inclusive.
Open and
also,
inclusive. Yes.
Right. So even even China, even Russia, they can subscribe to such a policy, although they don't subscribe. Right. They see them at these, they are being targeted. So we come to Quad. Right. Quad. Which are the countries which make up Quad?
So the countries that make up Quad are Australia, India, Japan, and the US.
Right. Is it a military alliance?
No, sir, it is not a military alliance. It is it is an alliance of converging interests, but it is explicitly not a military alliance.
Right, right. It's not a nation, NATO.
No, sir.
Yeah, but then there is a perception, right, that Quad is focusing on one country, right? Which is that country?
So it is China.
Yeah. Have you heard of the Malabar exercises?
Yes, sir.
What is Malabar exercise?
So the Malabar exercise is a multinational joint military exercise where navies of various countries by invitation participated in on a biannual basis and try to form a certain bonhomie as well as coordination in working around maritime security as well as disaster preparedness.
And most of them are Quad
So,
countries.
yes, sir.
Yeah, but they're not part of Quad, right? Yeah, right. Okay. There is a perception that India is not as committed to Quad as the other three. In fact, it has been said in the media and by some think tanks, India is the weakest link of the Quad. What would you understand? What would you say to rebut that?
Sir, I do not believe that India is the weakest link. Rather, it is the most crucial link because we are the only ones who are in direct contact with China as far as the border is concerned. The rest countries are far away, and they can always choose to escape and leave Quad, but we do not have any options. So, as far as their statements are concerned, they are because we cannot actually we cannot directly anger China after a certain point because we have to contend with them as our neighbors. And another reason is that these three countries are spending more and more on their navies, whereas we spend only 15 to 20% of our military budget on our navy. So that is also a concern that we are not spending much on our maritime services. So I think that India is rather crucial. Without India, there can be no Quad because we are the original stakeholders in the region. West countries always have an option to leave, but we don't.
Have you heard of AUKUS? AUKUS.
Yes, sir.
Anything you can say on that?
So AUKUS is an Anglo-Saxon military alliance of Australia, UK, and the US, where they have, as far as because Quad is not a military alliance, they have formed one of their own, where they are focusing more on the Indo-Pacific region to strengthen their own military capabilities and thwart China's efforts. That has also led to tensions between Australia and France because the Australians had to cancel a Scorpion submarine, missile submarine deal with France to get submarines from the UK as part of the AUKUS agreement.
Yeah, but you missed a crucial word, critical word. Which kind of submarines?
So nuclear powered submarines.
Right, nuclear submarine, right? Nuclear propelled submarine.
Yes.
Last question I'll ask you. Can you have seen that since 7th October last year, there has been the conflict between Israel and Gaza and the Palestinians, and also tensions with the Arab neighbors. So India's has good relations with Israel, has good relations with Palestine. So India has sort of articulated its approach to this particular issue, right? This conflict. So, are you aware of the kind of elements, the keywords which have been used?
So the keywords are peace. First of all, we are on the side of peace. Second,
Right.
zero tolerance for terrorism.
Right.
Third is the two-state solution.
Right. Very good.
And fourth is humanitarianism has to be the goal.
Right. And one more. Israel has a right to defend itself.
Defend itself, yes, sir.
Yes. And
yes.
Yes. And dialogue is the best.
Dialogue and diplomacy is the way to, not arms and ammunition.
Yes. Right. Thank you so much.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Pulkit. You are from Maulana Azad Medical College.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell what are the important contribution of Maulana Azad in freedom struggle?
Sir, Maulana Azad was essential for the Indian National Congress to counter All India Muslim League's accusations that it was a Hindu-only party and stood for a secular India. Second, he was also president of the Indian National Congress during 1940, which was a very crucial year. And eventually, he led the Quit India movement as well. And he was a part of the interim government as well. After independence, he became the first education minister of India.
Good. It is often said that IAS basically handle a variety of work in district because districts are so complex, district size are so big. So some people suggest that in order to improve the efficiency of IAS, size of district should be reduced. Do you believe this is a good logic in order to improve the efficiency of the districts?
Sir, I think that if the decision is to reduce or increase the size of district, doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to depend on the officers, but on a broader scale about efficiency as well as administrative convenience. Because if we reduce the size of districts, we'll have to increase the number of officers, and we already have a large vacancy, so that will add to that. Number one. Number two, I believe that this will also lead to breaking of traditional relationships between people of the same district who live far apart, and it would be an administrative hassle as well, because new lines would have to be drawn, new centers would have to be built, and new relationships would have to be formed. So I think that that should not be a reason. If it has to be for reduction in size or increase in size of districts, it has to be not because of the officers, but because of administrative convenience and public welfare.
So, if we have to increase the efficiency of IAS officers in districts, and we can't basically do the reduction in size of the districts, then what we can basically do to increase the efficiency of the administration at district level? What alternatives available?
So the first thing I can think of is giving more power to the local bodies and empowering the representatives as well as the gram panchayats, so that certain issues can be solved at levels lower than the district level itself, so that these issues are not do not bog down the IS officers. Secondly, I believe that officers uh, need to be more involved in the sub district level as well, and the block development officer's duty is very important in this case. Thirdly, I think women empowerment will greatly help, because eventually they are disproportionately burdened if there is any inefficiency in administration. So women empowerment and working on women's causes will also help.
It is often said that bureaucracy has evolved a lot, and it has increased its size also, and it has become a big problem for politicians, for ministers to basically control this bureaucracy. uh, Pulkit, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay, so as the size of bureaucracy is increasing day by day, how we can basically control the bureaucracy so that they can't misuse their power?
Sir, we can talk about strengthening rules and implementation all day, but in the end, I believe it comes down to the ethics.
Ultimately, if you make rules, they are the only one who have to implement them. So rules will not going to help it.
Sir, I believe that number one, I think there should be at least at joint secretary and above levels, there should be a provision for lateral entry, at least for technical departments and ministries. Secondly, I believe that ethical training for officers at various levels needs to be enhanced and increased. Thirdly, there have been certain suggestions earlier as well, where officers are evaluated at specific stages in their career, where after 20 years of service, their service record is evaluated, and if it is not up to the mark, they are compulsorily retired. So I think that these things can be done, and specialized training as well as technical training also needs to be provided to officers, so that they can be not be seen only as generalists but as specialists in their particular fields.
uh, Bureaucracy has actually evolved also, developed also since 1950s. What important development you basically noticed in the bureaucracy, or we can say from the traditional bureaucracy to the modern bureaucracy?
Sir, the thing that I have personally noticed is that the the gap between the common public and the bureaucrats has actually decreased because of coming of information technology, and that has changed the attitude of the officers as well. Where earlier people were considering them as deities on ground, but now they are seen as public figures as well as role models. Secondly, I am heartened to see that the number of services has also increased, and there are a lot of technical services now as well, me being part of one of them. And this eventually leads to specialization of a particular officer in a particular field, and helps us to shed our tag of being generalists and not specialists.
Do you also believe that being generalist is one of the cause of being inefficient?
Sir, as far as that is concerned, I think that inefficiency might in part be because of lack of training. It might be a personal fallacy also. But generalists are important in administration because administration in itself is general, and no officer can be expected to have high level of expertise in all fields. Therefore, that there are technical experts. So yes, for example, our own ministry has a director general who is a specialist as well as a corresponding additional secretary who is a generalist, so that administration as well as technical matters can go hand in hand.
Your Def mentioned about that you have been about Indian Corporate Law Service.
Yes, sir.
Can you, Pulkit, please tell about what is corporate governance?
So corporate governance is the way, in a very broad sense, it is a way that companies are governed. It is about developing internal methods and mechanisms to achieve commercial as well as societal goals, and to balance rights of shareholders as well as stakeholders.
Suppose if there is any conflict between the stakeholder and the corporate, where these conflicts will be resolved? What are the mechanisms in India to resolve the conflict of these corporates?
Sir, for any company registered under the Companies Act, the adjudicating as well as regulation is in the hands of the Registrar of Companies, or the ROC. There are offices in 25 states and union territories where a person can go to a complaint, and it is their job to first inquire and then adjudicate. After that, there is a regional director level, which is the first appellate authority for decisions of the ROC. And after that, there is the Director General level. Apart from that, if anyone feels that there is a complaint of a criminal nature, he or she can always go to the courts and file a case there, and where there might be specialized tribunals as well, like the National Company Law Tribunal.
Okay. Suppose if dispute is not of basically criminal nature, if the dispute arising out of the contract, is there any law also in India which governs such type of disputes?
So there is the Indian Contract Act, where a person, if he feels that his contract has been not followed to the letter of the agreement, they can file a civil suit also as far under the Indian Contract Act.
There is one more law in India, Arbitration and Conciliation Act.
Yes,
What
sir.
is that law all about and what it covers basically?
Sir, it is about a quasi-judicial procedure where arbitrators and conciliators are hired as third parties, neutral third parties by the government, who try to solve disputes amicably between parties that feel that they are aggrieved. It leads not only to decrease in backlog of cases, but also an amicable solution, so that there is no animosity going forward.
Can you tell the difference between arbitration and arbitrator, and or you can say the arbitration and mediation? What is the difference between these two things, arbitration and mediation?
Sir, the primary difference is that an arbitrator takes the decision himself. The conciliator helps the two parties to come to a mutual decision.
Good. Can you differentiate between the jurisdiction of Supreme Court and High Court?
Yes, sir. Sir, the High Court mainly is responsible for adjudicating on disputes within their own territory, while the Supreme Court has a pan-India perspective and a power. Secondly, going into the nitty-gritties, the High Court cannot pardon. I'm so sorry. I'll start to rephrase my answer. As far as court martials are concerned, they can only go to the Supreme Court. They cannot go to the High Courts, and they have every order of the High Court has to be followed by the Supreme Court, and only Supreme Court can nullify the judgment of a High Court, but not the other way around.
If I ask who is having a wider jurisdiction, is it a Supreme Court or a High Court?
Sir, wider in terms of the type of cases that they can hear, it is the High Court.
It is the High Court. Okay. There was basically criticism of emergency in 1975. Post that, we have basically amended our constitution so that such type of misuse of power should not be come again in India. Can you tell us any 2 or 3 major amendments in the constitution which have been basically made due to the emergency 1975?
Sir, the first one is the 43rd Amendment, which nullified the provision in the 42nd Amendment that a High Court could not challenge laws that were made by Parliament. That provision was removed. And then there was the 44th Amendment, which increased the quantum of majority required to declare an emergency and change the procedure drastically. Also, it removed vague terms to declare an internal emergency to specifically armed rebellion, so that internal disturbance provision cannot be misused.
Instead of internal disturbance, basically they had used armed rebellion.
Yes.
Suppose if there is any internal disturbance in any state, what will happen?
Sir, if there is internal disturbance in any state, first of all, it is the responsibility of the state administration to quell that disturbance. If they ask for central help, the central government can dispatch companies of the CRPF or any other paramilitary or military force as it sees fit. If that internal disturbance is being abetted by the state government, then the governor has power to dismiss that state government and put it under president's rule. But the Supreme Court has said that that is an exception rather than a rule, and the state government needs to be given ample opportunity to protect its own borders, as well as section.
Suppose you have just mentioned that if there is any internal disturbance, the state government can basically seek help from the union government, and they can basically send paramilitary forces and other forces in that particular state.
Yes.
Suppose if there is any internal disturbance and state is not seeking for help, and even the state itself is basically not able to manage the situation, and governor is also basically not dissolving the state government, then how do you see this situation? Is it happening somewhere in India in some of the state? Can you name that?
So currently the internal disturbance in Manipur is still not quelled. And in these conditions, hypothetically speaking, the president has the power to unilaterally dismiss the governor and get a new governor in place who might be more amenable to ask for central assistance.
Okay, that's it. Last question. Who is your role model in your life?
Sir, my role model actually was my grandfather who passed away unfortunately last month, because originally he came from Lahore, and at a very young age he had seen the horrors of partition, but he still did not affect that disturbing memory of his opinion of people of different religions, and he presented an example of social harmony in front of my eyes. So yes, he's my role model.
That's all, Pulkit. Thank you.
Yes.
Can you just step out for 2 minutes? We'll call you back for the feedback.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Pulkit, when is your interview?
Sir, on the 10th of January.
10th of January. So hardly any days. So you are a good candidate. You know your subject. Our advice would be that prepare yourself on your professional side, that is medicine. You know, all issues which India is facing on health sector problems, you know, non-availability and the various schemes which government of India has brought in, whether they are successful, not successful. So that you prepare on one hand. Another hand, brush up your current affairs. One advice is be little slow. Don't be very fast, because if you are very fast, what happens is you use one or two incorrect words here and there, even in spite of the fact that you know the correct thing. But when you're speaking very fast, there is a tendency for anybody to commit mistakes or use the wrong word. So that you can avoid, and read newspapers. Which newspaper you are reading?
Sir, I read the Indian Express as well as the Times of India, both of them.
You read Hindu for next 7 days, 10 days. Read Hindu. Times of India does not carry much. It's no longer the Shamlal. Now read Hindu and the Indian Express.
Yes.
And the editorial pages, and Hindu carries good articles, because topical articles which will be.
Yeah.
And if you can read last 10 days Hindu on the internet, that will do you good. Okay.
Yes.
Wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir.
Best of luck.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.